Well, hey, what's up, everybody? Deanne King here. Terrence Middlebrooks. I guess he's here.
I'm here. I'm always here.
Come
on time.
And on time. What a blessing.
Yes.
Happy Thursday or whatever day it is.
It's Thursday.
Depending on what. No, someone might listen to this later.
True. Okay.
Hello. But either way, hopefully everybody's warm. How you been holding up with the cold, Terrence?
Man, I'm cold, you know.
You're from Tennessee. This should be nothing.
No. I moved away from Tennessee because
to
of the
escape
cold.
it.
To get away from it. Mm-hmm. And this is day 4 of it?
Yes,
Yeah,
but
this is...
better is on the way.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Listen,
it is.
Okay?
Yes, it is.
He may not
I can
come when
endure.
you want him.
Look at you.
But he'll always
endure
be on time.
The 4 days versus the 4 months for those who deal with it for several months up north. So,
yeah.
Yes.
And we didn't get any snow, so
We didn't
we'll
get
take
snow.
it, right?
Yeah.
But in the midst of this storm, hence our episode.
And storm it is.
Yes, it has been a TikTok frenzy, might I say. I feel like this has been the conversation that everybody has been having.
Right.
It has been in all of our newscasts, and then it goes from the newscast to the newsroom to on my phone, through in my group chats, and I don't even have the app.
Well, and that's another thing. You said that everybody's been talking about. Everybody, for those that don't have it?
Yes.
Guys, folks, let me say this right here. I always joke to my folks about not having TikTok. I have an account. I'm not active on it. I don't go on it or anything. I might have 1 or 2 posts on there. But Deanne King herself does not even have the app downloaded on her phone. And that is rare. I can't believe that.
I could call a friend right now, and if they want to send me something on TikTok, they have to screen record it and send it to me.
That's too much work. Your friends must really like you.
They do. That is love.
That is too much work.
Let's get into it, though. We have an incredible panel today. I'm so excited about our guests. We have Mr. Anthony Gilbert. Y'all might know him as Call Anthony on Instagram, on social media, on TikTok.
Yes.
He does a phenomenal job basically going into restaurants, particularly with the focus on minority and Black-owned restaurants, and giving his own take on it and his own reviews. So thank you for joining us, Anthony.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes.
Of course. And then we have Jeff Rogg, who is with the University of South Florida, national security expert. You have an incredible background in national security, but also went to law school. You know, you've done a lot in your lifetime, but an incredibly accomplished man. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here, Dean.
And Jeff is also alumni of the Ohio State University. He wanted to point that out. Recent national champions.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Let's get into this conversation because I love, and for folks who are listening in, why we have Anthony and Jeff, we want to look at this conversation holistically, because a potential TikTok ban doesn't just affect the kids at home scrolling on TikTok, right? Like, we know, we've seen, have y'all seen that guy who made 20 mil off of TikTok?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen them all. That they make
You haven't
money.
seen him, Jeff? Oh my gosh. 20
I've only
million.
heard it's unbelievable how social media influencing is its own economy now.
Yeah.
And so many people are doing it. And so I can understand from Anthony's angle how, this affects your business, which is a very different perspective than mine.
Yeah, let's talk about it, Anthony. So you say you started your brand, Call Anthony, what, 8 months ago?
Yes. Well, I started the brand doing other stuff. Like I was doing car accident referrals. So I kind of started it with that. But then I kind of moved into, trying to just put the spotlight on small businesses. Mm-hmm. So I would say the actual brand of Call Anthony, as far as the small businesses, about 8 months ago.
Wow.
And just since then, it's just been such a big impact, even on the community, bringing so many customers, new customers to these businesses, as well as for myself, because, it's it pays the bills.
Yeah.
I got a few brand deals with major companies just from post a video on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. So social media is like a real, real big thing right now.
Is that your sole way of making money? Is that your sole income?
Now it is.
Wow.
I've backed away from everything else that I was doing. I'm 100% just content creating, getting different brand deals like weekly. I love it. I mean, I understand the security risk and all that they talking about, but man, I'm trying to get this money, man. And,
Yeah.
and, it's hard, man. I'm from the hood, so We don't get all these different opportunities to make money without having big degrees. And, you know, I didn't graduate from college. I see y'all did, but, you know, I didn't. And, you know, social media is just an outlet, and it's helping a lot of, you know, some younger kids in the community understand, hey, there's other things we can do too, man.
Yeah.
We can make content. Like with a phone, I don't have to have $1 million camera. I don't have to have this, you know. So it's really big.
So Anthony, you go around to these small restaurants that more likely probably wouldn't get any type of notification unless you're from or in that neighborhood. What made you go and tap into that part of the content creating?
I just felt it was something missing there. Some of the smaller businesses, maybe it's just their budget, or maybe it's just people that's their friends' restaurant, so they're not really telling them the truth.
Or lack of resources.
Yeah, and then they might not tell them the truth about, hey man, you messing up on this food, you got too much salt in it, or you know, something like that. So I go to a lot of places. I won't even tell people about it on my page if it's a bad review. I would talk to the owner. I'd be like, hey, listen, I think this and I think that. And I would come back, you know, probably 6 months later, 3 months later. And if they change things and it's better, then I would be like, hey, all right, let's tell people about this.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a lot of things that go into having a successful small business. It could be your appearance. It could be your staff at the front desk. It could be, you know, just small things that keep people from coming. So just over the years, I understood that, and I just wanted to spread that with the business owners. And it's been working, and a lot of these businesses have like 3,000% turnarounds.
Wow, that's gonna be my next question. Like, what would be what's the turnaround,
impact.
the impact of
man.
your videos and social media?
Yeah, I would say the smallest impact of turnaround is probably 1,000%. It's just from people knowing that, hey man, this place is here. It's safe to eat there. It's safe to go in that neighborhood. Hey, these people are nice. You know, you go in there. There's a lot of friendly people in the hood, man. I'm talking about, you know, people ain't as they put it out that the hood don't go to the hood, but the hood is one of the biggest spending economies in America. If you look at the black population spends the most, but they don't spend it within the community. So just letting people know about these places inside the community, it also helps, you know, the community build up, you know, wealth and, you know, generational wealth for their families as well.
That is incredible. First of all, shout out to you for even creating a platform to do something like that, because we know what it's like. We know we've created platforms and spaces for minorities, and we know how hard sometimes it can be to even garner support. So you've made social media your bread and butter. So take me through when you realized like the days were counting down. We were getting closer and closer to that Sunday of when this alleged TikTok ban was going to happen. Where were you mentally?
I was just like, oh man, this could be like the end of this could be the end of the beginning of the end, or whatever you want to call it. Cause it's like, you know, you put a lot into it. Like I got editing programs on my phone. I quit all these other jobs that I was doing, solely focusing on the social media aspect. And to hear that, hey man, you know, it's gonna be closing down and shutting down. Just so much goes through your head. Like, man, I need to go back and find a job, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
So I got other social platforms that I use as well, but TikTok is more, I would say, worldwide.
Okay.
So it draws in more people from out of state, out of the country, as far as, you know, local. Facebook, Instagram is a lot of mostly local until you go mainstream, but TikTok is just automatically spread around everywhere.
Do you find like your audience, because you told me you're heavily active on IG as well, Instagram.
Yeah.
And we know like Facebook is for the older generation.
Well, it used to be, not anymore.
Okay, so do you find that there's a different audience per platform?
Yes, definitely a different audience per platform. Facebook, you're going to get mostly your locals.
Okay.
Like direct locals, St. Pete, just one from Tampa, so St. Pete, Clearwater, everybody from those areas.
Okay.
That's my Facebook. And then Instagram, you still have that local base because it's still mostly local until you hit 1 million followers or something like that. But mostly it's local. But TikTok, that one's the one that's just everywhere. That goes from state to state. People from out of state know about you, know about your business. So when they see you on TikTok, they're like, man, when I go to Florida, I got to make sure I go by this spot right here that he has right here. So
is TikTok your biggest following?
no, actually it's not. Instagram is my biggest following.
Okay.
Facebook is almost about the same as Instagram, catching up fast. I joined TikTok late, actually, kind of like you did.
Oh, no. I'm not on TikTok.
You never joined TikTok.
Yes.
No, you never joined at all.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so you never joined at all. But yeah, I joined on to the TikTok thing late because I seen They was making so much money over there, man.
Yeah.
Talking about,
Yeah.
man, they was giving those guys thousands and thousands of dollars, $50,000, $60,000 for one post.
Wow.
Like, so I'm like, man, I need to see what this about. So
Okay.
I only been over there for like a month, and I got like probably only about 7,000 followers over there, but it just took off, and I got 2 of my brand deals from TikTok.
Wow.
Now, is it still like hashtag still a thing? Is it all about the hashtags, or is it all
No.
about the?
That's an old myth. So
Okay.
the hashtags actually mess up your algorithm. You don't really want to do no more than 3 hashtags. You want to just be straight direct what you're talking about in your video. It used to be a thing. Oh, put all these hashtags so your video can pop up.
Yeah.
Now they kind of throw those videos to the side, and
Wow.
yeah. So
I love that you talked about the reach and TikTok. I want to bring Jeff into the conversation here because we're talking about this looming or potential ban, and it all stems from a law. Break down that law that we're looking at, and what could potentially happen here.
Sure. First, Deanne, I do want to say, Anthony and I were talking before the show. I'm from Tampa, and I grew up here.
Yeah.
And so doing things for the Tampa economy, I was at Fat Tuesday. I saw it in the background this past week.
Okay.
So I am a huge proponent of advancing Tampa's economy, the local economy. I went to Hillsborough High School.
Come on, Hillsborough High.
Yeah, there you go. Class of 2001, although I shouldn't admit that. So, I do want to be clear that the angle that I bring from it is different than Anthony's, and it's a national security angle. And that's always difficult, is to balance things like freedom of speech, capitalism, which lets people make money the way they can make it best, with national security concerns. And the reason why this law was bipartisan, meaning that in spite of the fact that Republicans and Democrats have so much they disagree about right now, the fact that they agree about the possible national security risks of TikTok should signal everyone that there's a legitimate concern there. And so the law isn't also necessarily getting rid of TikTok. There's a couple outs, and that's what Donald Trump, President Trump's new executive order is trying to do by giving us a moratorium on the law taking effect. It's giving us, I think we've heard 75 or 90 days. We were talking about it, reported different ways. The opportunity for someone in the U.S., a U.S. buyer, to buy the company, to buy ByteDance. And so, the origins of the law were that Congress saw TikTok is a company controlled by an adversary of the United States. It's a Chinese company. And the concern is that that country is going to use TikTok against U.S. interests. And so it's not the Supreme Court, when it looked at the law, wasn't even looking at it from the angle of freedom of speech. It was looking at it on whether or not having technology controlled by a foreign state is a national security concern of the United States or not. And so you had Congress and the Supreme Court both agree that TikTok poses national security concerns. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now.
Wow. So, Anthony, when you hear that, are you concerned with something like that as a creator?
I'm not concerned about it, because I feel like if they're going to get my information, they're going to get it one way or another. There's so many ways for people to get information. The information is already out there. Siri, get your information. Google, Alexa, get your information. I just feel like, it's a risk. Me in my state, I'm willing to take, because, like I say, man.
He said, "That's 50K on one post." And I think his point is valid, right, Jeff? Because that's what we're hearing from a lot of these creators. Is kind of like, TikTok is just one avenue to get our information. So with you being an expert in this, what are the concerns? What do we really need to be worried about?
Sure. And, I agree with Anthony to an extent. Look, China has gotten information on Americans through means other than TikTok. So is this anything really that different? Well, again, when you click on an app and you sign that user agreement that says, if you use this app, we can collect information about you, it's a two-way street. So you're using the app, but you don't know how you're being used. And, one of my concerns, and what I particularly focus on, is my area of expertise is intelligence. And so the ways that TikTok can be used to gather intelligence is really, it's new, and it's something that I don't think everyone fully appreciates in terms of how the information is going to be used. We were talking about this also before the show, Deanne, and you and I and a lot of us feel the same way, which is, if people are going to collect information about us, they're going to get that information one way or another.
Right.
I agree to an extent. The issue is how can that information actually damage people other than us? And so one of my concerns with TikTok when I think about intelligence is the use of big data and social network analysis. Here's what I mean by that. So if someone can collect information about you and you're okay with it, that's one thing. But what if they can use that information against your family, friends, neighbors, other people that are in your phone? In other words, it's not just about collecting information on you anymore. It's about using the information against people around you too. And so that's part of the national security concern here is it's not just an individual right to say, well, I'm signing away with this user agreement with TikTok, the right to my privacy. You could be forfeiting the right to other people's privacy as well.
That's good. That's real good because I guess this is very television-y, but like let's say someone in your circle like gets arrested or something. Are you basically saying like they can use whatever data that they gathered from, let's say, Anthony's food post? Like, so let's say, for example, this is SVU. Dun dun dun. So your friend was with you when you walked into 7th and Grove and did your review.
Right.
But that was the same day somebody else got killed and he may have been there, but he's saying like, oh, he's able to use your video as an alibi. Like, is that what you're saying? Like that can it can play that kind of way?
Well, the police doing that anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't care what you post. The police looking, the feds looking. So if you're doing something dirty and you trying to hide it, don't be on
social media.
Period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, it's too late for that anyways. There's also a difference though between what the US government does and what a foreign country does, especially if, we see them as a competitor of the United States. And so, that's the other national security interest here is unfortunately for us, as citizens of the United States, we have to tolerate a certain amount of U.S. government, surveillance for hopefully lawful purposes, not unconstitutional purposes.
Right.
It's just different when it's a foreign country doing it.
But who feels like this really comes down to money?
Well,
is it that the Chinese are making so much money off of TikTok
That's
and
what
the
I
U.S.
think.
is
That's
looking
how I
like,
feel.
bro, I want some money too?
Like, let us in.
I
The
think-
government always want in.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think, going back to Jeff's point, it's all about the technology that it's, and I think that's where the battle is. My biggest question, Jeff, is how safe and how secure are the TikTok shops or the TikTok shopping where people can go through TikTok and purchase these items? Not only TikTok is gathering your personal data, now they have their
stuff on TikTok.
Yeah, now they have your financial accounts and all that, credit cards, all that. And I think to me, that's the biggest risk. Could be wrong, but Jeff, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of good news when it comes to technology
Anything,
and surveillance and privacy. I wish I had better news. But look, hacking for criminal purposes, more so even than national security and terrorist purposes, they kind of overlap. But hacking for criminal purposes, gaining access, fraud, I've been a victim of it. Family has. I think we all know people.
Yeah.
It's just a reality we live with now. And so that is a huge angle with TikTok. I mean, look, you're just not safe anymore when you download apps. This isn't to scare people off
100%.
technology. We need it, but this is an assumption of the risk that we just have these days is the apps aren't safe. And, frankly, when it comes to, again, the national security angle, because I bring it back to that because there's a certain risk tolerance we all have in our own lives and fraud. What happens when you multiply that across the entire country? 170 million TikTok users. So in other words, again, it's not just one person losing money, it's hundreds of millions of Americans doing that. And so that hurts our economy as well. That becomes a national security issue, whether we like it or not.
Wow. That's good. Wow. That's real good. A part of me, I do really feel like a lot of it also comes down to money.
I feel like the government, like I said, they're gonna watch you regardless. But let me ask Jeff a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that America being in on this app or over this app or a part of this app is going to change the risk of people in China or wherever still getting your information?
I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah.
No, to be very honest, no, I like this question. I'm glad you're asking, Anthony. I mean, this is something that, again, local Tampa guy talking about national security. Tampa has a lot more than I think people realize who live here.
Yeah.
National security interface through McDill. I'm at
Yeah.
USF National Security Institute now. So it's something that, just like you, Anthony, want to alert the community to things about, the local food scene, the local economy. I want to make people in Tampa safer. And so that's part of what I'm doing on the show. Look, intelligence is with us whether we like it or not. It's not. Look, if a country can't acquire information one way, they'll think of another way to do it. Terrence, you said something also, and I want to connect these 2 points. And why this problem isn't going away is I want the US, why couldn't we we have Instagram, right? Why couldn't we create something to compete with TikTok? So, part of me feels like we should be more innovative. Why can't the US market, create something like TikTok itself, and then we outcompete China? I would much rather see us do that than have to impose laws on people like you, Anthony, that hurt us for no reason. Let's be the more creative country then.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I really think that the ban and the shutdown of TikTok would only kickstart something else to what you said, Jeff. Another social media app will come along, and people will jump over to that and take off from that. Well, let's take this to where there's been talks that Elon Musk perhaps has an opportunity to buy it, or
They said
may
Musk,
jump in.
this guy, Mr. Beast. I had never heard of him
Yeah.
before.
Oh yeah, Mr.
He's-
Beast.
he's-
But
he's
my
rich
question
off
kind of goes.
social media.
Yeah, my question goes back to what Anthony has said, that would we be safer if perhaps someone here in the U.S.
If
purchased,
Musk buys it.
if someone here in the U.S. purchased it, or perhaps Elon Musk with the partnership of President Donald Trump, where are we at from a security standpoint? Are we safer with that? I don't trust Elon Musk,
And it's not even a full.
I'm just gonna throw that out
It's
there.
not even a full sale.
don't
Like
trust
they just want a
Teslas.
piece
I
of it.
don't
They
trust-
just want a piece of the pie. It sounds
Yeah.
like to me.
Yeah.
Because they're not saying
Yeah.
let us take it completely. Let us get in on it. That's what I hear.
50% of it, like 51%.
51, yeah.
So this is where I kind of use the law degree too. There's certain legal myths out there. So the idea is if a US person owns 51% of the company, that's a
majority
that
owner.
is by the law. And this is why I understand the frustration, because it just seems, again, it makes it seem cheaper, like it is just a money thing. But to the safety angle, there's one thing we didn't really talk about with TikTok, because Anthony, you don't use it this way, or at least in your personal business. But who uses TikTok for information and propaganda and disinformation? And the fact that there is a concern, the intelligence community has expressed a concern that China has or will use TikTok to propagandize in the US. So they're reaching Americans and changing what we think. And that's a huge national security concern, especially today.
Exactly. Literally, I was going to ask you next if there was going to be any kind of censorship if we do take over, if the U.S. owns it, because we're already, and you're about to get me on my tangent here, because this is why I don't like TikTok. And it's because of misinformation. And this is the journalist in me. Because, for example, what'll happen is, and I don't want to repeat this, and I hope, because I don't want anyone to take this as it's true. I'm sitting at the table, right? And I'm with two younger ladies. They're like 19. And they're like, oh, Deanne, I'm not going to Gasparilla this year. And I'm like, why are you not going to Gasparilla this year? And I'm like, oh, because I heard that the guy who did the thing in New Orleans has a whole group here in Tampa, and they're already plotting something, and they're about to put out the plans. Baby, where did you hear that? And I said, let me guess, TikTok. And she said, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
well, and
like
yes.
there's no censorship. There's
Correct.
no way for people who unfortunately don't even have the discernment to realize and think, like, that sounds idiotic.
Yeah.
But like, people are reading false statements through and through every single day on apps like TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, all the things. But that's what disturbs me the most about the app, is that there's no level of censorship. So if we do, Jeff, if we buy into this app, is there any way to combat that, do you think?
That's one of the toughest questions that I hear about in national security circles is, and I know that there's a lot of misperceptions about what national security people think and what, the intelligence community is trying to do or not do. But generally, in my experience, a lot of them are very concerned about things like freedom of speech and censorship. And, with something like TikTok, one of my biggest fears with this law, even though, again, the Supreme Court wasn't ruling based on the freedom of speech angle, it was ruling on the national security angle, is it creates censorship. And so is the solution to misinformation or disinformation government censorship? I don't really think so. And, I'm coming at you from USF, and, Deanne, you said you're a graduate of USF.
Yeah.
This is what my job is for, which is how do I reach students at USF or people who in the community, and this is why I'm grateful for the opportunity to be on the show, about national security issues and misinformation that can be used against us to hurt us. This is a challenge. And this is one that, frankly, in the national security realm and in academia, we aren't meeting well. And so, I want to ask Anthony, so TikTok provides, I don't have the app, but certain sound bites. And it seems like people are able to deliver fairly compelling news in 30-second sound bites. And to me as a professor or as an academic, how do I even communicate as effectively as TikTok is doing with an audience so that way they don't become victims of disinformation that they get on the app? Like, what can we do better, in other words, to communicate with public audiences so that way they understand national security issues and they're not going to TikTok for it where they're just not getting good information?
Well, I feel like with the apps and stuff, there's so much in everybody's hands. Everywhere you go, you're going to see somebody strolling on their phone.
Yeah.
So it's going to be generations before that goes anywhere. So the only way I feel is for you to integrate yourself into it. You have to get there and you have to give as much misinformation as they're giving information. You have to give good information. And you have to integrate just like pretty much with anything else. If you wanted to grow, you have to grow with the times. You can't be stuck back in the days. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's really the only way I see any teacher, any officer. I tell the police, I go to the police station once a week. I tell them, if y'all want to be in people's face, y'all need to get on these apps. Show them what y'all doing. People on their phone, they don't care what you put in the newspaper. They barely care about TV shows now. Like, if it's not on this app, some people gonna see it, but it's not the masses.
But I feel like that's the thing. Like, Jeff, your question is amazing because you're right. Because your question is like what we deal with in the news. Here we are. We have been a part of this community for, my God, how long, And it was a point where you could only turn on your television to get information. Right. That was the only way you were able to figure out what was going on in the world. But now with social media, we are fighting the people, putting out all of this misinformation. So we are working on ways like, okay, how do we reach that 19-year-old girl who thought this was real? Right. How do we get to her?
I can say this, and I'll answer this, Jeff, real quick. And, at one point, I want to say about a year or two ago, it was reported that TikTok has become the most popular search engine for Gen Zs. I have a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old, and my son will come in, he's 16, and, Dad, did you see where such and such? And the first thing I asked him is, where'd you get your research? But to Anthony's point, TikTok. Okay, now, there's nothing wrong with that. You're right, Deanne. Back in the day, TV news was the only place we got our information, our global information. However, I'm a little older than probably everyone in this room, so I don't look it though. But, my grandfather was real big on staying abreast of what's going on in today's world, and all we had was newspaper. If we missed a 5 a.m., 6 a.m. newscast, we either had to wait had to wait till 6 p.m. that evening to get it. However, nowadays, this generation is, like you say, Anthony, it's at the palm of their hand. But TikTok is such a buzzword that they're going to go there. And as they scroll, what's on TikTok? Food reviews, global news, all this information is there. I told him, I said, son, listen, if you're going to do that, if that's going to be somewhat your source of information, do your research. All right, while you're on TikTok looking at that story, flip over to Instagram and see what they're saying on there. But first off, go and Google it. You got the World Wide Web at the palm of your hand. You can also Google it and read the reviews there. So don't just base your information, because the one thing I don't want you to do, I don't want you running around here talking to your little friends or getting a conversation with adults, and you only have this one source, which
And
is
you sound
this
crazy.
And you all
bull crap.
100%
And now we
wrong.
talking about you
Now-
on a podcast.
Now we're talking about you on a podcast, and they looking at me like, man, that Terrence dude, that his son is a dork.
Yeah.
You know, you see what I'm saying? So
I think
anyway,
I think there's so many. Well, I don't think there's one. There's no way we can fix it in one solution, Jeff.
No.
There's no way that teachers, people in academia can reach students and even faculty. I mean, even adults. Like, I mean, grown adults are guilty of this now. I just don't think there's just a problem that fixes it all, because we can get on there, Jeff. You could create a whole TikTok account and only put out the truth. Are they gonna follow you for that? I honestly feel like people put out misinformation because that's what spreads more.
and that's what get the
That's
followers
what
and the
gets
likes.
the
People want
clicks.
the likes. People want clickbait.
Yes, right.
But you can't fall for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I say, it ain't going nowhere. So you got to kind of, like you said, do your own research. Search this site, search that site. Don't just go running with all these narratives just because you've seen it one time. Oh, they said it on TikTok. It must be true. You know, so.
I have a two-part question for Jeff and Anthony. Jeff, from your standpoint, if the U.S., somebody in the U.S. purchases TikTok, do you think that there are going to be new constraints that influencers and creators are going to have to follow?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say any more than already exists on, say, Facebook or Instagram. It's possible, but, you know, I think the concern was that, and this is, you know, Anthony already pointed this out, is, oh no, the Chinese government is getting this information. So we'll just be safer if we follow the exact same rules, but it's just in the hands of an American citizen, not even the US government, just an American citizen. So that's where it kind of like, for all of us, we're all, you know, kind of agreeing, like, this sounds ridiculous in some ways. But there's good reasons. I would feel, you know, based on my expert judgment, a little bit safer if that this company was not owned out of China. I would feel safer.
Why?
As far as, well, because again, for you know, the software, the information that's collected, it's giving incredible reach to a country that, by the way, I think I didn't mention this, but there is a lot of public-private sector cooperation in the U.S. government and in the U.S. intelligence community. In other words, they do work with private companies in the United States to collect information and keep us safe.
Right.
China, they have it to a greater extent, in the sense of they call it military civil fusion, which essentially means there's no truly private company in China. Everyone, when the Chinese company or when the Chinese government comes knocking at a company's door, they're not asking nicely, they're getting what they want. And so that includes the software that China has, or that TikTok has, the information. If the algorithm provides access to your phone and they can hack into your phone, which is a huge concern these days. You know, Bill Evanina, who was formerly the U.S. counterintelligence czar, I think he said China has collected personal information, and this is to your point on Dan, whether, you know, they've collected information on you, on something like 70 to 80% of Americans.
Wow.
Adult Americans. So that's most of us. And again, it goes back to the question of, are you comfortable with that on an individual basis? If you are or aren't, then, you know, that's something between your conscience and the Chinese government. You know, for me and what I do in national security, I'm not very comfortable with the idea that a foreign government has information on 70 to 80% of us.
Wow. Yeah.
Jeff,
When
are
put
you
it
on
like
TikTok?
that. He said no.
You're not
No,
on-
I'm on Twitter, because that's
Okay.
kind of like academic social media. So for us nerds, we're on Twitter because we get to share our very important ideas on Twitter. But also, there's one more piece of it, which is it's a bandwidth issue. You know, Dan, you kind of alluded to this too, which is
You ain't got no space on your phone?
well, just or my attention span
Oh,
isn't good.
okay.
Like, if I have like Facebook, Twitter, you know,
Yes.
TikTok. Now, Anthony, you're in a different position though, because you're using this for your livelihood. So I absolutely want to acknowledge that, which is different than me, which is just like social
I'm just
media.
here to scroll.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, like you say, I this is definitely my livelihood right now. So, and social media is just like I feel like that's just the new it thing, man.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a while before that change, unless we get rid of computers and technologies and phones
That
and
ain't
everything
happening.
else, and that definitely not gonna happen.
So the same question to you, like what if there are some kind of constraints as far as content wise? I don't know if this is a possibility. You know, if someone were to buy here in the US, were to buy ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, or buy TikTok technically, would you just adjust? Would you just kind of move and finesse? What would you do?
I'm adjusting and keeping it rolling because
Yeah,
that's what you got to do in life anyway.
you're right.
So Anthony, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You say you have most of your followers on IG.
Mm-hmm.
Would it really affect you if TikTok was to shut down? And I mean, you might have answered
I
this
don't think
question
it'll affect
already,
me,
but you would just jump
directly.
platforms and just be more active on IG, correct?
Yeah, but that's just me, you know. I talk for the whole community, so. But me personally, it probably wouldn't affect me that much. But I did get 3 national brand deals from TikTok.
Through TikTok, yeah.
And I
So-
feel like you're at a space where your TikTok was growing.
Yes, it's
we
growing
had
fast.
one of our producer Naisha, and we were looking at your page, and you had like, you went from one post that had 200,000 views to another
Right.
post that had like 100,000 views,
Right.
and it's only been 8 months. So
Right.
imagine if we weren't even having this conversation,
Yeah.
right? Like if TikTok was still just as normal as it possibly was, and there was no looming potential ban and all this other stuff. Like imagine where you could be
Exactly.
with TikTok, and you already got 3 brand deals off of that.
Right, and I know people personally that's making good money off Instagram. I'm talking about personally from the hood, just like me, making buku bank off TikTok.
How much we're talking?
I'm talking at least about $30,000 a month,
Just
Yeah.
walking in these restaurants
and not even doing what I'm doing. It's a guy Swisher 3 times. I'm shout him out. He's my good friend. He does all the viral Walmart dance videos.
Okay.
He got like 1 million over there, 1 million followers on TikTok, 500,000 on Facebook, 500,000 on Instagram. But he right from the community.
Wow.
And, man, he got so much
Right here.
revenue.
He's here in
Right-
Tampa.
He's right here in Tampa.
What am I doing wrong?
Like, hello. What, I'm
I'm trying to figure.
wait, TikTok cannot. But here's
Yes.
another thing about it though. With what happened, I couldn't even download it if I wanted to.
Yeah, you're
So
just
if you
gonna
don't
be.
have the app, me and Jeff, we can't even
You guys are
download
done.
it.
That's it. You
We-
will never.
so-
Yeah, I see they selling
won't even
phones
have
and
anything to
stuff
tell your
with the app on
grandkids.
it for
Yes.
50,000.
They're
and stuff.
selling phones on eBay that have TikTok for like $2,000, $15,000 on eBay right now.
Well, and the problem is, and what I've read and done my research on, is that you can't even update it. You not
Oh, I
only
didn't
can
know
you
that.
download it, but those that have it cannot even update it.
Jeff,
so-
do you know why? Does that have something to do with security? Like why we wouldn't be able to download it?
Yeah, well, I think it's an automatic moratorium. So in other words, it's shut down. In other words, they can tell. So they're not telling TikTok anymore. They're telling whether you have an Android or an Apple or an iPhone. I have an iPhone, for instance. Those companies can no longer allow their
Provide the
use of
app.
that. So in other words, it's going through a different company now. And this is what I meant when we said, there's public-private sector cooperation in the US. This law is passed. Apple, Android, Sony, whoever makes your phone, they don't want to get in trouble with the US government because now they get punished. And so they control what the app developers are able to do or not do, to include updates. And as Anthony knows, these days, at a certain point in time, if you can't update something, it's
Yeah.
dead
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah,
Wow.
they make a lot of money off them updates. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's big. I feel like, I don't know, the security. I understand the security aspect of it as well, Jeff. It's just like I say, it's like it's like weighing the options, man. It's like, hey, they gonna have my information one way or the other. So
I think to dive a little bit deeper to help all of our viewers who are hopefully just mostly everyday people, right, Jeff? For your everyday person like an Anthony, who's an entrepreneur, who's a content creator, who's doing the right thing in life, who theoretically that statement doesn't have anything to hide, right? Why should they be fearful of the Chinese having their information?
Sure. And this is something that I'm tackling, personally in a lot of my research on intelligence. So, one of the difficult things that we all need to adjust to, and again, very happy you had me on to have this conversation, is we are going to be in the 21st century the most surveilled and watched century in human history. And it's not even close. In other words, the ability to spy on people on an
Yeah.
individual basis, on a collective basis. And, I'm an American intelligence historian. My book is a history of American intelligence. I think it's very important to note that a lot of times when surveillance is used in US history, it's used against political, racial, religious, ethnic minorities. Generally, first and foremost, when it comes to national security threats, because there's also a perception of the other or the foreigner, the adversary. So in terms of China, who would we watch first if we're worried about Chinese, adversarial developments in the United States? Probably Chinese nationals, American citizens
Yeah.
of Chinese descent. So I think it's important for people to understand, surveillance in the United States has typically been, it's even if it's used for good intentions, a lot of times the outcomes aren't always great. And, as it relates to TikTok and, Anthony, what you're saying, and this is hard for me because I can't really prove it because we're developing so fast. Countries are experimenting with how they can now manipulate people through controlling the information that they have, through privacy. There's always been propaganda, but our ability to go into an individual home through like a cell phone, an individual's mind, through their connection, through their device, because that's what we're connected to more than friends and family these days. We're connected to a device.
Right.
Governments are trying to figure out how to manipulate you. And the Chinese government in particular is trying to do that. You might have heard there's something called the social credit system. Basically, what the system does is it rewards or punishes people in China based on things like virtues and vices. So, in other words, if they jaywalk,
Yeah,
they're
I just heard
they're
about
being
that.
tracked and punished.
What?
Yeah, I just heard
Yeah,
about that, and they getting like incentives for doing good things.
bingo. Reward.
Yeah.
And so, think about it this way. I don't know if any of you are pet owners or
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you,
Yes.
Terrence, you mentioned having children. How do you change the behavior of a pet or a child? You
Yeah.
reward or
Reward
punish
them.
them.
Yeah.
So now imagine being rewarded or punished almost without you even knowing it based on daily things you do online on your phone. And one of my concerns, and again, I can't really prove this per se, but I'm it's something that I have to use the weight of history to try and inform what I'm worried about with the present and future is different countries, for instance, the Soviet Union under Stalin, they believed that they could mold a human being. And one of the ways that they did that, they wanted to create the ideal Soviet citizen. And one of the ways they did that was through intelligence, surveillance, crime punishment. So the idea of going into someone's home, children were spying on parents, parents spying on children, priests spying on the parishioners. This is really, really scary stuff.
Yeah.
And so this is where we're at, kind of. The genie's out of the bottle when it comes to surveillance and technology. We all said like this problem isn't going away. So one of the things that I have to do in my capacity as someone who studies intelligence is how could this go absolute the worst way? I don't work in the field of like happy thoughts and optimism. I work in the field of what
Worst
is
case
the worst
scenario.
that could happen.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to give you all the worst case scenario here is that you are being manipulated in ways you can't fully understand. None of us can. That countries that have a lot of money actually devote a considerable amount of attention to this particular question, which is how can I gather information and then change people without them even realizing they're being changed? And when it comes to the United States versus China, this is the competition for the 21st century is us versus China for the human mind, the human spirit, beliefs in authoritarianism or democracy, freedom versus, security. So that's unfortunately one of the best, if not happy, if it's not the happiest answer I can give you.
This puts me to mind of a 1998 movie that came out with Will Smith and Gene Hackman, Enemy of the State.
See it?
I'm telling you, man, go back and watch that movie. If you've never seen it, go back
I've
and
never
watch
seen
that
but
movie.
I do love Will Smith.
And tell me how it relates to today.
Right.
Everything that you just said, Jeff, what I just thought about, money. The U.S., let's hypothetically speaking, right? We're speaking on something that like can't necessarily be proven right this second. But if the goal here is to manipulate us and to get intelligence on us and to be able to give and feed out propaganda to manipulate us, why wouldn't the U.S. want in on that?
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. has done it before. When it comes to the money angle, I think there's a difference between, and I think we can all relate to this, money and power.
Yeah.
Money is one source of power, but there's other types of power. Knowledge is power. Information is power. The ability to manipulate people is power. And so, why wouldn't the US want this too? Look, at different points in American history, we experimented with ways to mess with people's minds. There's a famous program, the CIA did it in the 1950s, called MK Ultra, and they used LSD. And the reason they did it is because they had POWs coming back from the Korean War saying that, they were the way they were interrogated, their minds were being manipulated, they were being experimented on. And so the US government thought, well, we need to make our people more resistant to that, and we need to figure out ways to get information too. And so, I think of it in terms of not just a money issue, but a power issue. No, I know I'm not here to scare you. It's like Thursday morning. It's almost
out. Where's the safest place to go, Jeff?
Tinfoil, grab your tinfoil hats, think happy thoughts, like bury yourself in a basement. No, there isn't, but Deanne, what you're saying is, so this is a challenge that we all have to deal with collectively and individually.
Yeah.
Talk and this debate we're having over, how to go about doing this. This problem isn't going away. And I'm a huge believer in, I think we need better, the American people need more access to this information, to this understanding of how national security works, how a program like TikTok could be a national security threat to the United States. And then we need people like Anthony, we need shows like this to allow the American people to express their vote, go out and vote on these issues. I'm a huge believer in democracy. So we have to vote on national security issues, but we can only do it with our eyes open. And one more thing I want to say, Terrence, I really applaud you for when your son comes to you for the first question, because I ask students the same thing. Where did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yep.
That is the best thing you can possibly do. And then say, okay, I understand you heard that here. Did you check it anywhere else?
Yes.
And then you have a conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's important.
Well, Jeff, I'll tell you what, man, if you ever decide if TikTok doesn't get banned and you want to start a channel and make $30,000 a month, man, I will follow you on
Me
all
too.
this national
I'm
security
tuned
information
in.
you give it.
I just need I need the first episode to be, here's where you go.
Yes, this is what you need
This is where you can go to be safe. I want that to be the first episode. That's all I asked for.
And make sure y'all all
doing
follow
it
me
right
because
here.
I'm trying to get me 30,000 a month.
There
too,
you go.
guys.
There you go. And before we wrap up, of course, we have all of your information and going to share that out with everybody. But what are your final thoughts here, Anthony, from a perspective of a content creator? What do you want to see happen moving forward?
I mean, I definitely want to see the app stay. Who's in control of it? I really don't care. Honestly,
That's real.
I don't care because
yeah.
you can't control it anyway. They're gonna do what they want to do unless you're part of that 1% that own that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make money. I definitely want to be safe, but I also feel like I said, the information is going to be available one way or another through the government, through Chinese, through U.S., through whoever. So.
Do you take safety precautions? Like, do you have safety measures in place when you're creating your content?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I don't keep none of my cards or nothing on my phone. Like, I don't shop on TikTok Shop.
Yep.
Okay.
You don't show your home address.
Never show where you're living at. You always got to take precautions
Yeah.
with anything. So I definitely do that, and I definitely appreciate the input, Jeff, about the security risk, and I will spread that information to the community as well because it's still important.
On. There we go. And so how can the folks follow you?
Follow me at CallAnthony_ on Instagram, Anthony Gilbert on Facebook, and Call Anthony Reviews on TikTok.
All right. We love it.
If you can.
If you can. You got 75 to 90 days till they figure it out.
There we go.
Jeff, what are your final thoughts here? What do you want to see happen from a security and intelligence standpoint?
I want to see exactly more conversations like we had today. I want to see outreach into the community from national security people and then having the conversation about what are the risks, rewards. I want to see people like Anthony continue to do what they're doing because what it comes down to for me, again, is innovation. Why didn't the U.S. create a better app in the first place? We have a lot of it. I want to see the U.S. The best way we can compete with countries like China, adversaries, even allies to an extent, is we always continue to innovate. We always continue to test ideas here, for instance. So for me, again, the genie's out of the bottle. The technology isn't going away. The threat of propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, government surveillance. So the best we can continue to do is be an innovative people who are always willing to challenge ideas.
All right. Final thoughts from Jeff Rogg. Thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
guys so much.
Is there any way folks can reach out to you? You say you had a Twitter page now. What's
I got a
your
Twitter.
at on Twitter?
Yeah, it's called so it's at The Spy, the State, because my book is The Spy and the State, the History of American Intelligence.
How can
And that's
folks get
coming
your
out-
book?
Well, so that'll be out with Oxford University Press in May. I'll also be talking about it at Oxford Exchange in
Oh,
May
nice.
when it comes out. Yeah, in Tampa. Yeah.
Oh.
Keep us posted, Jeff.
Yeah,
would definitely
we could
love
bring
to
you
promote
back
that.
on,
Yes.
May.
I'll be very glad to do that. And, I'm also here at the University of South Florida Global and National Security Institute, and we put on events. And so we're hoping that more members of the community and the USF community, alumni such as yourself, the end will get engaged.
Absolutely. I love going back to my old stomping grounds of USF. We appreciate
Thank you
Jeff.
guys so much.
And if nobody tells you this ever, I appreciate what you are doing, not only for students at USF, for this community, but honestly for our country and beyond. Because what you do, I'm sure, is tough to walk into work and think about a worst case scenario every single day. But with the heart of that being to keep people safe, it takes a special person to do so. So thank you for
Yes,
everything
thank you
that you
both,
are
guys.
doing, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all for joining us. We appreciate you. I want to move, Terrence.
Move where? Where you
I
gonna
don't
move
know.
to? Underground?
Not China. Not China.
Another planet? Where you gonna move? That's the only way.
At
That's the only
this point-
two places you can get away from
At this
all
point, I don't even know. I do think conversations like these are very healthy. I'm so glad that we came together and brought two totally different spectrums
Yes, absolutely.
together, because you got people who want to eat, right?
Yeah.
You got your Anthonys out there in the world, but then you also have your Jeffs out there who want to make sure that everybody is safe and protected. So
100%.
regardless of what happens with TikTok, we'll keep y'all updated. I know that for sure. Make sure y'all follow, like, and subscribe us. We're your friends here at Rooted in Progress. We are live every Thursday at 11 a.m. on the WFLA Facebook page and the WFLA app. Go ahead and follow us too, and like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We love y'all. Be safe and stay rooted.
Stay rooted, folks. Thank you.